All right. Welcome to this week's Hangops. Uh, today, I think Brandon is actually going to skip today because he got stuck in meetings. Yay, meetings. Hopefully, a few more folks will join us. But how are you doing, Michael?
Good, good. I had a rare case where I didn't have a meeting at this time today, so I thought I'd jump on.
Oh, and Jordan's going to join us. Like, how awesome is this?
He's alive!
I know, right?
We're sending hugs from afar.
Oh my. You caught me on a good day. My calendar today is empty.
Yeah, mine's pretty light too, which is why I'm here.
And see, I'm the exact opposite. Like, I think my calendar, from 11 a.m. until like 3 p.m., I'm just in like solid meetings,
That's
including
most of
this.
my week these days, but I'm working on being better.
The key is putting meetings on your calendar that give you free time because otherwise you don't get free time, it seems.
Yeah, I don't know. I used to do that when I worked at Google when I kept getting assigned like 3 interviews a week. I would block off my entire days as busy so that recruiters wouldn't like dump candidates on me so I could actually get work done. It was tricky. I actually liked doing interviews. I just didn't want to do 3 a week.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the hard part, right? Like I know I find in my new role, like it's not that I don't want to do community things, but there's the technical things you want to do don't necessarily always correspond with the community things that are going on. So it's like tough to balance at times
It's
just
true.
to find that solid piece of time. So, well, cool. As I said, I think Brandon wanted to talk server spec. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing. My guess is he wanted to talk about how cool it is, and I've spent the week dealing with how horrible software is. So, um,
Such is life.
yeah, right.
Haven't we all spent the week doing that?
Say again.
Haven't we all spent the week doing that?
Yeah, no kidding, right?
It's every week, man.
Specifically with server spec because there was an update. Well, there was the major update to 2.0, which was painful because all of the stuff that we've got in Test Kitchen like broke because of the syntax change. And I think we've got a blog post, and by we I mean Seth Thomas. In fact, I should ping him and say, "Come talk with us." Um, but anyway, he like has what started going through the pain of like moving from server spec 1 to server spec 2, and then yeah, they introduced some Docker stuff, which introduced a gem which had a native gem requirement, and because Test Kitchen's busser for server spec just downloads the latest gem, like you can see where this goes, and it's not a pretty place.
Yeah, if only gems could actually tell you the dependencies they had.
Hmm.
Well, the heart the I wish there was a way for you to like oh, and I don't even know how you would deal with this, but it's that it blows up because it doesn't have a compiler. And we're
Right.
sitting having this discussion like, well, one way to fix this is just to always install the compiler chain when you're testing things. But that doesn't feel right either.
No, I mean that's been one of my kind of biggest criticisms of gems overall is it's fine at telling you other Ruby dependencies it has, but once you need a compiler or a library to go to link against or whatever, it's just a black hole. And that's the problem with a lot of these library management package systems is they're really good when all it is other libraries. I think a lot of things are the same way, but Ruby has always been the one that's really made me angry. I mean, we've all sworn at no-code for the same reasons.
Or
Yeah, I live my life in JRuby, so I don't deal with that bullshit. I don't have to compile libxml daily.
well, what is the one that we're running? There's one that's in that Chef depends on, like geocode or G code or something like that. And yeah, that's one of those like, I'm not using an omnibus package, and I've just decided to like gem install uh, what is it called, Chef. I'm gonna go walk away and get a coffee or walk around the block because it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
Yep. No bueno.
But other than that, like server spec is like freaking awesome. Um, In fact, when I was getting ready for PuppetConf, I set up Test Kitchen with Kitchen Puppet, and then wrote a bunch of server spec as I was testing like ideas around how my modules should flow, and it was just a blast. Like I can assert that this thing is doing this thing, which like we've all wanted for years. I mean, isn't that what we wanted out of Nagios but didn't get?
I don't know that you didn't get it. You just maybe didn't make it happen. So, I like. I mean, Nagios at its core can do anything you want it to. It's a scheduling engine. So.
True.
Are you saying it's the Zombocom of monitoring servers?
I'm saying it's let's see. I don't know. It's like cron with a GUI.
I thought that was Jenkins.
Also,
Let's not split hairs. They're both cron with a GUI. Okay.
Yeah. No, one of the interview questions I've been asking lately for like automation engineers is fundamentally what's the difference between Nagios and Jenkins?
That's me.
Yeah, I haven't really ever gotten a great answer out of it, but a lot of people start to understand where the question's going, and then it's usually good conversations. So
That is something that I haven't gotten a chance to do enough of. I think in my career is be on those interview panels where you can, because like it's always fun and in some ways hilarious. Like when you're talking with hiring managers, they're like we want to test their technical chops and this, that, and the other, and it's like, yeah, but I can talk to them and get a feel for whether they have any clue.
I mean, yeah, you can. Certain people can kind of get past that pretty easily. Like certain people can talk way better than they can actually execute. Certainly.
Fair enough.
But I mean, that's why you have different types of interview teams. You have people that are looking at, how you're fitting with the team, what kind of work rap background you have, what kind of structure you can work with, and then other ones are much more, hey, can you code this thing up? And we don't usually ask like crazy coding questions, but it's kind of like, can you do a couple of nested loops?
Well, it's really been interesting. So I've been talking a lot with folks about that idea of like coding, right? Like and I get it a lot where it's like, oh, well, I'm not a coder, but I write Puppet code, and it's like, dude, you totally are a coder because like that's what you're doing. And it's interesting to me the reality of, I think we as like operations professionals and sysadmins, like you grab, how many of us have ever looked at code and been like, okay, Fortran, was a little confused. But you can generally like dig into it and figure out what it's doing. And I think one of the things I think about a lot as I talk to people when I'm kind of judging for operations talent is not how good can you start from scratch, but let me hand you something broken or hand you a stack trace and some config file, or I'm sorry, and some code and some config files. Tell me what's wrong here. Was where I started going towards the end of my tenure at my last position of, oh, well, go look at these things.
Yeah, we have an exercise that does that as well. I mean, I think we have usually it's 6 interviews if you actually want to work here. So it's like, I mean, 6-hour interviews. It's not like it's 6 times you come into the office or anything like that. But it's
that would be crazy. Well, not 6 interviews, but 6 days of interviews.
Yeah, that would be absolutely crazy. But we have, we do like kind of the troubleshoot session, the coding pairing session, an architectural session usually, kind of like a lunchtime thing that's a little bit lower key and like less stressed, hopefully to let the candidate decompress a little bit. And
how do you use a fork?
Yeah, no, I don't ask that. Usually the first question I usually ask like, are you vegetarian or not, and then I start to discriminate. No, it's
yeah, it's tough. It's tricky. I find we've my interviewing processes at my company, Austin Church, has been a learning process where it's not as formal as it needs to be, and you end up with some folks asking the same questions in 3 different interviews, and it's tricky. You want to have like a formal set of questions, but you don't want to ask things that you can just type into Google and get an answer, and you still want to find out if they're a good person to work with and how their thought process is. And
yep.
The lunch thing is a really good idea because then you can just like shoot the shit and see what the person's like.
Yeah, I mean that's the interview that I actually usually run. So Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would say that there's one thing I've learned while working at Puppet Labs is how to interview people. We were 35 people when I got here, and we're 330 now. So I've been on a few interviews. Uh,
I feel like that number is always growing, right? Like,
it
I
is.
feel like at PuppetConf it was like smaller than that. I feel like it was like 290 or something.
At the PuppetConf, it was over 300 certainly. So.
Okay, I must have misheard it then. My bad.
Or it could have been someone was misinformed.
That's entirely possible, right? Because like,
Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep track. It's not like we have a dashboard that sits there. Well, yeah, we don't have a dashboard that's always on. That sits there and tells you how many employees we have.
Or maybe there's a track where you enter and they just like capture you and ship you off in a crate to Portland, and they say, "Welcome to Puppet Labs." And you
Yeah,
just
basically, we hand you a T-shirt, we hand you a hoodie, get some stickers. Now it's free to interview. And if it all works out, you get a job. No, it's
yeah, right.
it's a lot like that.
The paycheck just roll in. I am not a hiring manager, by the way, in case that wasn't clear.
I am. So,
I do a lot of it. I actually like interviews.
yeah, I do too. I really enjoy them. I love learning about people. Like the best interviews are when you learn something from your candidates.
Yeah.
That's usually if that happens, then it's so rare that I'm a thumbs down if I'm learning something from the candidate.
so as we continue down just our random topics today, have you guys had to deal much with the poodle stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote. I looked into it a lot. I mean, there's a blog post up on our publabs.com/blog that has kind of the state of the world for Poodle that I wrote not last night, but the night before, I think.
Did we get a cool logo out of this one?
Oh, there's not an official one, but
One.
there's.
I think you tweeted it.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it. I'll paste it in the IRC links.
I will describe it because you just have to see it. And
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I don't have anything in production anywhere, so I don't have anything to deal with SSL faults other than investigating whether or not we still support it.
Yeah, that's been this interesting thing as we've done this adventure with the multiple SSL and bash bugs over the past couple months. Like, I feel like a bad ops person because I don't have any responsibility on boxes to need to do anything. Like, I had some personal boxes where like I upgraded bash, but that was it.
Man, rough. It's the best.
I'm waiting for this amazing poodle.
Yeah, I'm a little bit afraid now that I've built it up just too far.
No, it's perfect. If it's what I'm thinking, it's perfect. It's just
Just to get
better than Hartley, I think.
Yeah. Oh, so it's I put it in IRC now. So.
Oh, that looks like something I would see on the back of someone's truck as they drive around town.
Right. No, it's
You gotta at least share your screen, man, so we capture it on video.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Or I'll do it. Come on, man. We have computers.
We have the technology. I forget that it's not just a.
And
I know, right? It's not just something that you get mad at. I mean, look at all the billions of lines of code that are allowing us to communicate. We have to use like the one more line of code to show this logo.
To show a pooping poodle.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is. It's amazing.
here, let me set. I think if I do that, it'll force people to see it. Yes, it is the pooping poodle. That is awesome. Okay, I'm clicking Stonky. There we go.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing because the rest of my desktop is entirely uninteresting.
Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Yeah, I got this. Save image as.
Okay, so
Carry on.
Yeah, so I mean, I was going to talk a little bit about it. Like, I mean,
Go for
the nice thing is that most things don't use SSL v3 anymore. Most things are a little smarter than that, although certain things certainly tend to fall back. You know, one of the things that was unfortunate for us was ActiveMQ, you know, the message broker that we use for OwnCollective. If that's misconfigured with ciphers, it falls back to insecure ciphers. So, like, if you have a syntax error in your cipher selection, it falls back to the insecure ones, which is
Nice.
that's a pretty unfortunate bug. And you know, that's in the ActiveMQ stack, not necessarily in our stack. But the other thing was we did a lot of analysis on, you know, how Puppet works and how MCollective worked, and you know, it was. I mean, the blog post says it all, but Adrian Theba, one of our XSL guys, just kind of looked at it and he's like, look, it's going to take you 56 days of constant attack to get 1 byte from Puppet the way it works. And I was just like, okay, I feel pretty good about this. You that's a run interval of every 20 minutes, which is higher than the normal one. And I mean, it was just all this. It was like if this and this and this and this and this all line up, you could get a byte of data, and it wouldn't even be interesting. Like so. So for us, it wasn't the biggest of deals. We put some steps up for manual remediation for the very paranoid, but it's I mean, Poodle to me was one of those cases where somebody wanted to brand an exploit way more than they actually thought about the impact of it overall. I mean, if you looked at like I think it was Cloudflare said that like 0.65% of all browser sessions are negotiated at SSL v3. I mean, it's such a low number. Where I mean, it's not like we shouldn't fix it. It's not like we shouldn't do better. But it's was it the kind of thing that we had to wait on a web page and get a 24-hour notice of embargo and all this kind of stuff? I mean, like, yeah, gosh, I don't think so. So.
Yeah, definitely not at the level of some of the other ones.
Yeah, it's like the product managers for security vulnerabilities now are just, they're thinking about the go-to-market strategy for them rather than the actual impact for the end user.
Although you have to wonder if some of like the bash vulnerabilities, like how long those have actually been known. Like I mean, those bugs have been lying there dormant for. There has to be someone, state-sponsored that's using that or was using that.
It's tough to say. I mean. A lot of it would have shown up in logs pretty easily, right? And so it's a matter of, are you actually? I mean, it comes back to the question of, do you actually look at your logs or do anything with your logs, which Jordan kind of has a passion about. But
no, man, it's so fast.
Oh, it's a web scale.
The web scale.
Yeah, it dedupes on the fly. It's.
I just need to go find. I don't know what my girls did with their elks. But I've got like 2 elks running around the house, and I should get one for like behind my desk.
They're so cute. I have like 3 different ones now because I have access to all the swag because our marketing team is awesome and local, so I just capture everything. I have this. This one's amazing.
That is awesome.
It is. If you are violent and you tear the head off, it becomes a USB stick.
Whoa.
Yeah, super awesome.
It's next level.
I know. It cannot get better than this. Although we have, I will tease that we have something amazing video-wise coming out very soon that I was involved in, but I won't say anything beyond that.
So on the note of random swag, does everyone remember when this shirt was being made?
Yeah, what was there a place you can buy those now?
So, it seemed like a community thing, so I went to my boss and said, hey, we should do something for the community and buy some stickers. So I worked with Dave Shaw, who's the person behind the whole thing, and we, at Chef, ordered some stickers. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to distribute them other than just like randomly send them to people. I haven't gotten the actual stickers, otherwise I'd be like holding them up in front of my thing. There we go. I'm back. But they should be here today, which is super exciting.
Nice.
So the next time you see me, hopefully I will have more. I'm hoping that people are as excited about them as I am. And Dave will have some too, because I'm going to send him like 200 of them. Fun randomness with swag, right?
Awesome stuff.
Oh, and Stonky, have you ordered yourself one of the Puppet Labs mugs off of the Puppet Labs store?
No, I have not.
You should get yourself one. The Puppet Labs mug is pretty bomb.
I don't drink coffee, so that's my first problem with the Puppet Labs mug.
Wait, you don't have to put coffee in it.
I am like floored. You
Come
don't
on.
drink coffee. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Never got into it. I live in Portland. Don't drink coffee. It's weird.
So are you a Coke Zero, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Pepsi?
Diet Dr. Pepper has been my vice for years. Although I was off soda for about 120 days this year, and not doing so good on that lately. That's a different story. So we'll see.
How do you do parenting without caffeine? Secret. Do you have a secret?
I think it's just a lot of complaining.
Better drugs?
No, it's mostly just complaining.
I mean, that can fuel you. I feel that.
Yeah, you also just kind of get used to being a zombie after a while. Like, I'm way better at less sleep now than I've ever been.
I'm with you. My kids get up at 6 o'clock now. It's been trending downwards. When we had one, she woke up at 10 a.m. and it was freaking amazing. And then now we
That's
have two, it's
awesome.
slowly down to 6 a.m. And
Wow, 6 a.m. Yeah, no, my youngest has been doing the 3 a.m. wanting a bottle thing.
oh yeah.
And what kills me is like I would be down if she waited till 4 or like
There's
3:30.
no
Like
negotiating with that
You
though.
say that now, but like if it was 4 o'clock every morning, you'd be like, if it was 5, it would be so much better.
no, I set my alarm for 4 a.m. every morning. Like I actually want to get up at 4 a.m. every morning.
No one wants to get up at 4 a.m. You're a
It's
liar.
at 4 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah, I've heard about
We should
this.
fix that. We should talk to Congress.
I've only seen it if I haven't been asleep yet.
No, really. Like I actually enjoy getting out of bed at 4 a.m. The killer of getting out of bed at 4 in the morning is when you get woken up at 3 in the morning because then you enter REM again and you wake up at 5 and it's not so good. But yes,
All right.
I'm
Let's talk
afraid
about
to
something technical or operations related.
well, but this is right. Like this is why Hangouts exists.
Yeah, I guess. I feel bad for those that are watching that, one, don't have kids and can't relate, and all they hear are the negative parts because having kids is awesome, but we
Oh
only
my
hear
god, it's so good.
And secondly, I feel like there's other things going on in the world that we could be talking about.
There absolutely are. I don't know what they are though. Let me go look at my mail because I'm sure there are things.
Like, I'm just gonna throw something inflammatory out there, like Gamergate. Fuck everything about that bullshit.
I, I honestly haven't read enough about it to even really know what's going on because I think I was getting mad about reading about the side effects of it, and then I was just like, man, there's enough negativity out there that I don't know that I want to know more, and I don't know if that's like the wrong attitude. But I don't feel like retweeting people is really going to solve a problem here or not because the people that I interact with on Twitter mostly have the same viewpoints that I do or very similar. So,
Gotta
and,
break out of that echo chamber, man.
yeah, I mean, I don't think that handing 1,000 likes on Facebook to somebody actually makes anything better. So that's where I'm at with it.
I think very simply put for me, the Gamergate stuff is just it's horrible and every mention I've seen of it has just been disgusting and it's something I've personally for my own sake outside of knowing that it is horrible and evil like have avoided because yeah like the shit that's going on there is disgusting and
What?
you know if put in this situation like absolutely I'm going to address it but I haven't been put in a personal situation where I need to address that and I don't feel like there's ways that I can show support that's effective and I'm sure there
Yeah.
are people that
Voice
there are people
amplification helps. Like simply clicking retweet. There's gonna be a bunch of people on your. I mean, if you want to get involved, I understand not wanting to. It's just it upsets me that people are being forced out of their houses and their lives flipped upside down all over under the guise of journalistic integrity, which is really just attacking people they don't like. Quite
yeah.
quite turning into terrorism at this point. It's no longer simply harassment.
Based on what I've seen, I would agree with you that that's effectively what we're seeing. And my hope is that someone from law enforcement is going to step up and figure some of this stuff out because it really is ridiculous. But once again, you get into that problem of jurisdiction, right? Like whose actual jurisdiction is it? How do we actually know who's behind it? And how do we solve those problems? Because I don't think there are good answers to those yet either. There's what I'm hoping to see is that over the course of the next five to 10 years, because that's how long these kinds of things take, we start to better understand how societally we deal with these problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just hope nobody gets killed in the meantime. It seems like it's getting there. You see, outside of the Gamergate nonsense, which is, I think, putting it too lightly that it is nonsense. But you see, like, people, gamers in general, they'll, like, be streaming things, and some asshole does a prank phone call to the local SWAT team, and the SWAT team shows up. Someone's going to get killed one of these days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the swatting stuff is just, yeah. I
All over.
Yeah, I don't even know how to address half of it. Like
I think
and
the
it's
logical answer is just don't play video games.
well, and that's the other part,
The
right?
only
Like,
conclusion I
Not
can
the
draw.
solution,
No.
well, and
we just need to have more hugs. These people need hugs, and I don't
Oh,
know.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
I do that. That's probably the other thing is like I've stayed out of gamer culture just in general, and like, yeah, I just don't feel like I've got a place in that discussion. Like yeah,
Yeah,
outside of
honestly, that's kind of how I feel too. I'm not a big gamer, so I don't understand a lot of it. So,
what I do understand is yes, if it's resulting in people leaving their homes, if it's resulting in people, like there's been I know associated with it, there's been shit where people like randomly like showed up at people's houses and crap. Like,
Yeah, do prank pizza deliveries, all kinds of bizarre stalker bullshit.
none of that's good.
yeah, ugh. Okay, so I'm gonna find something technical. I'm determined. Oh,
Hey, I would say, like, if you're worried about topical discussions, like there are three of us, there's 7 other slots someone could join and be like, you guys, let's change topics to this other interesting thing that we should talk about too. Eh,
for
that's my
sure.
my assessment.
I like that somebody said that PagerDuty was training for parenting in IRC. So,
Kind of, but the next comment was that you can hit escalate, but there is no escalate in parenting. You may attempt to, but there's at some point you have to live in the same location often as the person you might be escalating to, or there may not be no escalation path. So
yes. Well, even in PagerDuty, eventually you can't escalate anymore, right? There's always the top of the pyramid.
you just don't want to be at the top. Don't be the catch-all.
See, I like, and maybe this is just who I've been as an ops person. Like, I've never been the person that like was able to bring myself to escalate unless like I was staying there with them. So, yeah, I've always been the one where it's like, okay, I'm getting up. Okay, I'm gonna go get the bottle. Okay, I'm gonna go do this. And the same with like my ops roles. Like, fuck, I got the phone call. I'm not on call this week, but I feel obligated to get in and do the thing. So it's I don't know. I don't miss being on call, but I miss being on call, and maybe not on call. I miss the adrenaline rush of a large scale outage, but
Man, just pick up security as like a thing you start to take care of. It's very similar. Ask me how I know.
If you want, we could figure out how to add stress to your life.
We
no,
could
no,
have
no.
we
If
could
you're
we
looking
could
for that, I'll give you all kinds of options.
There's nothing about stress. Although I just want to say the next time I am out somewhere like where someone's got a data center, like I'm still looking. I miss the feel and the ambiance of the data center. Like I haven't been in a while, and it's starting to bug me. Although to be fair, I'm kind of glad that I don't have to carry around a backpack full of drills and knee pads and gloves and a headlamp and the really long drill bit because like that was the key was the really long drill bit.
See, I just do that at home now. I have a garage full of shit I don't want to be carrying around.
Yeah, man. Even when I worked in ops and ran on call and everything, I never had a backpack with tools in it.
Did you have data center responsibilities?
The servers had to be up and online, but no, I mean, no, there was another thing that racked. There was another thing that racked and stacked.
Yeah, I know. When I was like when I started in ops, like that was my responsibility. Is I was essentially from the OS down, so like getting the OS image onto the box, plus like ancillary services like backups and monitoring and stuff, and then like working with the network team and racking and stacking things. In fact, is it still there? No, I think I was there the other day. I hope it's gone. But at one point, we were doing new top of rack switches, which was a huge improvement because the data center had like old school style. There were cables that went up into the rack. Well, really, they plugged into the box. They went down into the subfloor, and then went across the room, connected to a coupler, and then went around the HVAC unit, and then went popped up into a rack, and then plugged into the switch at the bottom of that rack. And yeah, we finally replaced one of those with the top, all of those with top of rack switches. And in one of the racks, we had to, this is horrible, but we had to make an oak shim because there was no, we had to build internal rails inside the cabinet because it was that old, like an old deck compact rack. It was great. Yeah.
Nice.
So you just brought up something that I actually would like to talk about with you guys is,
Uh-oh.
well, you're talking about like top of rack switches and just kind of switches like where, and I saw, I think the DevOps for Network stuff was this week too, the conference that was in San Francisco. Have you guys been seeing any interest in network automation? Have you been working on it? It's kind of like we've had tools for automation on the server and system side for quite a long time, and I think there's been other tools in the network space, but they haven't been the same tools certainly. Kind of where do you think that's going, and what's been working well or not working well, or what have you seen? Open discussion. Go.
So I think there's like 3 or 4 problems here, right? So number one, VMware and vSwitches and that whole thing just turn that shit on its head right off the bat, right? Like when we started talking, and it's like, well, no, I need you to deliver a trunked, a trunked port to my server, and I'll handle it from there. And the network team was like, whoa, like you can't tag your own VLANs, like that's not okay. You need
Come on queue, not on my network.
Well, and that's an access port that needs to be bound to a particular VLAN, and it's really interesting to walk through those discussions. And so you've got a couple things, right? You've got on one side, you've got the network folks that really they get, because of what they do, they seem to get caught up in the minutia of like configuring individual switch ports, because in reality, when you talk to them, the things they are actually interested in involve configuring actual switch ports, but they're configuring, the routing plane, and they're configuring the at the core where an actual switch port matters. And I don't know, it's weird to me. I know what I want as a server person. I want to be able to just specify that when I, go into a rack and configure the thing, we can just say that port on that switch becomes, is assigned to this network. But I don't know. There's so much there. It's not. I don't feel like it's as simple as the system space started, right? Because it was just, well, we'll start by automating configuration. I think at the network level, the problems that we as sysadmins want to solve are problems on edge switching hardware, and I think the problems that the network engineers are wanting to solve that we're seeing discussed with like Open Daylight and all of the routing plane stuff is a lot more about, how do you manage flows. And
yeah, I think there's two different sets of problems. You're totally right, but like, top of rack or edge switching, like just stuff like that. To me, it's, my network engineers, when I worked, in larger infrastructures, the last thing they wanted to do was say, okay, I need to no-shut this port, I need to make sure it's got these VLANs on it, I need to make sure it's plugged into this NIC. Like, that kind of stuff is just minutia. It's just tedious. And if you can just automate that and say, okay, when this system comes online, I'm going to define my network interfaces for this top of rack switch, and it's just going to all happen magically. You can almost get into, the system or service modeling rather than just, the individual server. And, because if I can say, here's the application, here's what I need to model it, here's the, check into the load balancer or whatever. I mean, I just think that just takes a load off the network team to let them spend more time on the harder stuff.
Well, and the problem, it's a culture problem, right? Because, at least in all of the shops that I've ever dealt with that had large network teams and large systems teams that are historic, because, once again, it has to do with age, there's this weird place where those two teams are actually what used to fight. So, I mean, I was in a situation fairly recently. The time, place, and names shall remain anonymous. But essentially, someone was like, okay, well, we're going to fail over this core switch. so that we can do an upgrade using standard Cisco goodness. And the person, there was a systems person in the room that was like, well, can we not lose the TCP packets? Like, can we lose no packets? And it's like, TCP, like, why are we having this discussion?
Yeah.
So, and the problem becomes when the closer you get to management, the higher up in the stack you are, right? So shit rolls downhill, and the network team got blamed for everything in my previous shops. Yeah. No matter whether it was the network or not. And as a result, like, that network team, they actually wouldn't bring ports online in the server farm during business hours because they were afraid that the person on the other end wasn't going to specify the port right, and they would shut down a campus critical service.
Yeah, back at my last company, that was definitely, there were ebbs and flows of that, where at certain times it was like you got so afraid of risk you couldn't do the simplest of change. And yeah, it just doesn't sustain. It doesn't work that well over the long haul. The thing that I was going to say was, I think the thing that helped most in kind of the classic model of getting the systems guys to work with the network team, particularly for like top of rack type stuff, was converging the fiber channel with it. Because a lot of times the systems team was the storage team, at least, or they were very, very joined at the hip, kind of in the way that a lot of organizational models worked. And once that became the same device to do fiber channel routing and network routing, like with the Nexus line from Cisco or whatever, that was when it started to open up to, maybe we should be looking at these automation tools, because it was like the storage side was kind of pushing it more than the network side was. At least that was kind of what I saw, because it was the server guys doing the storage.
Well, and yeah, that makes complete sense. And the converged networks still scare me. Although the last place I was at that did those kinds of things, it was all NFS. Like, I don't even know the last time I actually built out infrastructure using fiber channel. It's been, I guess, 4 gigabit per second was still kind of the new hotness. The last time
that's a while ago. Yeah. I mean, fiber channel is expensive, but like once you actually got to like fiber channel over Ethernet, the costs come down quite a bit. Although you still have to buy a couple of extender modules and stuff for whatever your NAS is or whatever. But it's good. I mean, at Puppet Labs we don't run FCOE, we just run NFS. So.
Well, but that's an interesting point, right? Like the idea of the convergence, because you look at things like Cisco's UCS platform, and absolutely, like, why wouldn't you run all that shit converged? I mean, you basically just extend the switching backplane onto the freaking server chassis, and it's all configured in the same place, but it's the same problem you run into like with VMware, where there's these weird edges bleeding. And I think the real thing that we were the issue we're skirting around is, if your division is network versus systems, you're going to have a hard time, right? Like, at this point, it makes sense to have people that are specialized in parts of the networking and parts of the system stuff, but I think that we move to this more generalist model. Absolutely, as a sysadmin, you should probably be able to pass the CCNA, or something nearly equivalent to the CCNA, because you need to have that basic knowledge. You need to understand how the switching hardware works. You need to understand how all that comes together. And just as I think from a network engineer perspective, you should probably have a basic understanding of how Linux works and how it handles pushing packets out to the network, etc. What I don't think it needs to happen is, I don't think that a network engineer necessarily needs to understand the oddities of configuring Riak, or Puppet for that matter, but but on the flip side, I don't think a systems engineer necessarily needs to know how the complexities of flow management and how the control plane actually works, and the discussions around BGP and where you're making changes to routing protocols. Obviously, that changes when you're converging even closer. Like you look at things like what Fastly is doing with their hardware, where no, they're running BGPD or some sort of BGP daemon, on the Linux boxes to do crazy things. Well, you probably need to be a bit more conversant in all the things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just kind of goes back to the organizational structure, right? I mean, it depends on size, depends on legacy, depends on history, and then what's the forcing function to actually get you to talk about how you're going to automate them in a unified way. I mean, most networks of any size do have some automation, whether it's through even the simple things like just SNMP, or you have Rancid going, or whatever, and then beyond that you may have very different automated things with expecting tickle, or I mean, you could do things like that, or
your age is showing.
Or, well, I mean, but that's how, I don't know if you looked at a network switch lately. That's still a very common pattern for automation. The networks have not necessarily all caught up with the way that the systems are designed to be managed these days. But, I mean, there's just a forcing function that's going to happen in each organization, and, it could have already happened, could not happen for another 10 years, depending on how you're structured and the way you're looking. But, I mean, virtualization was a big driver of that, and I think, converged network is a big driver of that. But also, it's just like speed and time to value. And do I really need specialists to just zone out a LUN for, I need some more disk.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Like, I think that it'll be interesting to see. So I think John Willis is on to something when he said we're basically at the same place the systems people were with DevOps about 10 years ago. It'll be interesting to see how quickly we see that adoption curve. I mean, and we say that with the reality of, I would guess, 1 to maybe 3% of the actual systems administration market is doing the DevOps, if you will. Like,
well, that was going to be my question. Is like, if you look at where DevOps was 10 years ago, well, I mean, where is it today? I mean, it's a huge scale based on, are you a large organization? Are you small? Are you trying to move forward? Are you trying to just maintain? Are you investing? Are you not? I mean, like, it's a huge swath of problems. So to say you're 10 years behind, 10 years behind who? The leaders? The followers? I mean, that's one of the things I just don't understand. I can say that it feels like time travel when I go work on networking. It literally feels like time travel.
Well, and that was, I think, John Willis's point. Is
not a cool Back to the Future way.
Not so much that they're behind, but just that momentum is starting. That reality of, we need to be thinking about this problem set differently. If you will, that model of growth. And yeah, I don't think we're going to be at a place where it's like right now. I would love to be at a place where I could assume that no matter where I went to work next, okay, that's not a good example, but I would love to be at a place where I could just assume that if I walked into an IT shop anywhere in the world, they were running Chef, they were running Puppet, they were running Salt, they were running Ansible, pick one. But we're not there, right? Like, we're still fighting the good fight in that regard. And I think the network is going to take even longer, because we're not talking about, I can replace my Dell, I don't even have to replace my box. I can just install some software. Whereas, when you walk into a new shop, that network gear is expected to last 10 to 15 years. And you're not going to...
Yeah, there's that, and there's also just the amount of abstraction that you're able to do across variants of Linux is pretty high overall. Even if it's as different as Gentoo and RHEL, you can still do some common abstractions. And I think it's when you're looking at kind of top of rack, or even it switches between Arista and Cumulus and Cisco, and Cisco's iOS versus NXOS, and then you start looking at all those differences, and the abstraction becomes either such a big abstraction that you're in lowest common denominator, so you can't take advantage of any feature of the network gear you're on, or it's such a tight abstraction that it's not really an abstraction, it's just a direct interface that's written in this new automation tool. And I think that's been one of the big challenges that we've had, is just kind of looking at it. It's like, I'd love it so that you could walk in and say, okay, I'm on Dell Force 10 switches, next week I want to go to Cumulus, and I can just reapply the same configs and magic happens. But man, we are so far from that. So
there was a framework that and it's not really a framework, but there's a management tool that the folks at AOL developed and open sourced, and I don't remember what it's called. I know it's written in Python. Um, so it's interesting you point out those differences in networking technologies and whatnot. AOL 5 or 10 years ago basically said, "Fuck it, we're not dealing with this crap anymore. We are only going to run standard protocols." So, and even more so, not only are they only going to run standard protocols, they are at any given time going to have at least 2 large network vendors, if not the. I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for here, but like the idea that you're not going to get screwed by one of the network vendors, like, because that's what's happened, right? Is you end up in this place where it's like, I take advantage of insert large company, whether it's Cisco or Juniper or Extreme Networks. You take advantage of their proprietary networking technology. You go in and build on top of it, and they wait until you've deployed, a couple $1 million worth of, well, let's not kid ourselves, $10 to $100 million worth of gear, and then they go, oh, by the way, we're going to quadruple or 10x your support contract this year, and you've got $100 million of this gear deployed, so you basically have to do it for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of things there. You're still at the abstraction, and it's tough. And I think some of the more modern switches are definitely kind of being written for the automation frameworks in mind. There's an API for interfacing on these things, and they may not be the same API across different brands, but it's written with the idea that you might want to automate it, you might want to work with it remotely, and I think that's been a big shift. And it's been cool. So I think we've kind of beaten this topic to death, though. So
I do want someone actually in. It looks like Justin Garrison, and I'm not sure who S-Fire is.
But he's at work. We know that.
Yes, at work. Mentioned, so the tool is called Trigger, and yeah, there was a great presentation at Scale recently or last year about it, and just phenomenal. It really is a good starting point. I am hoping and looking forward to what's the word I'm looking for here, but I'm hoping that we will see improvements in this area. There's a lot.
There's almost no chance we can't see improvements. I mean,
true.
It's just not that great to start with. So.
Have you played with PK1 yet? Because I keep telling myself I'm going to take some time and play with it.
Oh, the 1PK stuff from Cisco?
Yeah, 1PK. Thank you.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Does that run on reasonable, anything other than Nexus gear, or do I have to go get a Nexus switch to play with it?
It's Nexus gear. So
I can't eBay that. Darn it. Because I've got a 2670 or something chilling downstairs. 2630 actually, 32 or something. Anyway, it ran IPv6.
That makes one. So.
Hey, I've got IPv6 at home, although I had to turn it off last night because it just the speed through the tunnel was not fast enough. I'm looking forward to it being native.
The story of the people trying to turn on IPv6. So anyway, I think I got a jet. So.
All right, and I am going to do the same. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, hey, it was actually good to talk. Luckily, I didn't have a conflict today, which rarely happens. So.
You should do what I do. Put it on your calendar.
Well, the problem is I have a recurring meeting at the time. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later.
Catch you later.